Hello. So, good afternoon and a very warm Welsh welcome to this Cross-Catapult Shaping Future Skills Conference. Prynhawn da, croeso cynnes I chi gyd, mae'n hyfryd I weld chi yma yng Nghasnewydd heddiw. It's so lovely to see colleagues, partners and friends from across the country here in Newport. And hello to those of you online. This is the third time the network has come together, but it is a first for me. So a real privilege that it's here in the city that I now call my home. And my 16-year-old self will be so impressed that I'm sharing a stage with someone from Westlife. We've got a very full agenda, but I think before we start, I just need to run through some housekeeping. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if there is an alarm, please make your way to the nearest fire exits, which I think are probably where you came in. Attendees online, please use the chat functionality, engage, join in. I think India's checking. The Wi-Fi network here is the guest network, which should be open for you all. Just enter your email address. The agenda is full. But we will be having a 30-minute networking / comfort break at 2:35. At 3:05, we're then going straight into the workshop, so we won't be coming back here. Your name badge should have a coloured dot on the back, and that's how you remember which workshop you've signed up for. If you can't remember, there are Catapult colleagues around who can help you. So back here at 4:05, online people, you have an extended break. So when we break at 2:35, if you could just reconvene at 4:05. Unfortunately, because we have so many speakers, there isn't an opportunity for a Q&A after each session, but we're hoping at the end we can have a little bit of time, and Guy will be leading a Q&A after the expert panel. At 4:05. So a little bit about CSA Catapult, my Catapult. As a Catapult, we are here to support businesses, transform great ideas into valuable products and services, and help the economy thrive. And as Martin always tells us, we are the and in R&D. Of course, none of this will be possible without nurturing the knowledge and supporting the people who enable it to happen. And we do that through the collaborations that we foster, the partnerships we develop, and the people that we invest in. So building on the work that's already been done by the Catapult Network with the successful launch of the ED&I Charter in Scotland last year, we're now in Wales to continue the work around ED&I and how we weave it not just into skills, but we should be weaving it in everything we do. In the relatively short time that I've been with CSA Catapult, the conversation around skills seems to have really grown, and the energy around the conversation feels like we're at a pivotal moment. So it's really timely that we're all here today. We're very proud of our collaboration with the Electronic Skills Foundation. We have an internship program that offers a suite of 12-month placements for undergrads across the country. Our interns are treated and remunerated in exactly the same way as other staff. So we're hoping to prevent any socio-economic boundaries that might impact a student's ability to apply to take such a prolonged period away from their studies. This scheme also promotes the pay it forward legacy. It's our interns that we then use to engage in our STEM outreach and activities, hopefully breaking this I can't be what I can't see notion. We also support Girls into Electronics scheme, which ran successfully across the UK in 2022, and are hoping to create a bespoke programme for Wales, where we know that sadly there is still much work to do in addressing the gender imbalance, with female applications for EEE undergrad degrees still slowly declining. We want to turn this around over the coming years, and we don't want to lose females who are strong in STEM to other careers, possibly just because they simply aren't aware of other pathways. We do this through our friends and colleagues at CS Connected, the Semiconductor cluster, engaging with further and higher education providers, careers advisors and parents through our STEM outreach. We're also designing a school toolkit to assist teachers introduce engineering concepts through a much wider variety of subjects, and this is especially pertinent in Wales as we roll out the new curriculum. It was lovely to see the Institute of Physics in our Innovation Centre last week with a group of newly qualified physics teachers, and how excited and inspired they are when we give them a tour of our labs and they can see the work that is happening in Newport, which is crucial for all of our technology of the future. All of these interventions, and the ones that you're going to hear about this afternoon from my Catapult counterparts, are championing opportunities and raising awareness, ensuring our impact can be seen and felt as widely as possible. And I'm really excited to hear from an expert group of speakers and to learn how we can share knowledge and continue the exciting work that is already happening across the UK. And I'm now delighted to introduce Councillor Jane Mudd, from Newport City, leader of Newport City Council, and I wrote it down because I knew I'd forget, Vice Chair of the Western Gateway. So please welcome Jane.
Well, Prynam da pawb. Good afternoon, everyone. Croeso aigers newydd. Right, my Welsh is nowhere near as good as the Welsh that Alex just said, so apologies for that. But I would like to offer a big warm welcome to you all to Newport. And I'm delighted to be here to welcome you to our fantastic International Convention Centre. And I hope that you get an opportunity to explore the venue while you're here today. Thank you for inviting me to come along to welcome you in person. And isn't it wonderful that we can do this again, that we can come together and we can actually use technology to connect in a hybrid way with all of those colleagues who are joining us online. Now, I'm particularly pleased that you've chosen to come together here in Newport, the beating heart of the compound semiconductor cluster here in the UK. Newport is proud to be at the centre of such an important global development. With our Cardiff capital region and Western Gateway partners, we're committed to supporting innovation because we understand how this will underpin the achievement of growth and prosperity here in the UK. The last 3 years have been turbulent, to say the least. Significant challenges have emerged on the back of Brexit, the coronavirus pandemic, and the more recent war in Ukraine. This has led to uncertainty on a global scale, as well as impacting the economy here in the UK. Our businesses across the region are currently facing a complex set of pressing challenges: increasing energy costs, availability and rising cost of material, and availability of suitably qualified and trained staff are all combining to create a challenging environment. It has therefore never been more important to create the conditions to equip people today with the skills that they need for tomorrow. Now, as a leader, I have a portfolio responsibility for strategic finance and economic growth. I'm Deputy Chair of the Cross-Border Western Gateway Economic Partnership and also a Vice Chair of Cardiff Capital Region, where I'm the portfolio holder for data-driven economy and skills. I also represent the region on the Cardiff Capital Region Regional Skills Partnership Board. But this is not just a political interest, it's a professional interest. Before I had the privilege of becoming the leader of Newport City Council, I enjoyed a long career in higher education here in Wales. I've been involved in teaching, research and knowledge transfer. I understand the importance of research and innovation, the importance of knowledge transfer, of developing skills through partnership. Now, in November, our Cardiff Capital Region Skills Partnership launched our Employment and Skills Plan. The focus of the plan is prosperity through partnership. Achieving this by fostering and embracing the collective knowledge of representatives from business, further and higher education, training and government across the whole of the Cardiff Capital Region to both inform and deliver impact, while providing social and economic prosperity for all age learners, new entrants and the existing workforce. Skills are often the number one issue and priority for business. The plan provides a vision for employment and skills over the next 3 years, and it builds on previous activities within the region. It was developed in consultation with the region's key stakeholders with the aim of informing and influencing Welsh Government on its future planning and funding of post-16 learning. Through the plan, the Cardiff Capital Region Skills Partnership aims to create a demand-led and sustainable skills system that will lead to increased productivity and prosperity across the region. I'm confident that the plan provides sector-driven and robust recommendations for Welsh Government and sets out the actions needed by a range of partners to address the skills gaps and shortages that are a barrier to growth. It's my personal view that investment in skills has never been so important as we look to navigate our way through the next 3 years. Now, the plan also reflects Welsh Government's policy direction as set out in the Programme for Government and Stronger, Fairer, Greener Wales, a plan for employability and skills. It paves the way for some exciting and much needed skills development activity related to the net zero agenda. And the board certainly support Welsh Government's approach to achieving net zero in response to the climate emergency through the Net Zero Skills Plan. However, collaborative action and progress will need to be escalated if we're to develop green skills for the jobs of the future. Similarly, focus will also need to be placed on digital skills, which have become even more significant because of the recent pandemic. I'm immensely proud of the changes to the curriculum here in Wales. As this new generation of pupils progress through our education system, they will develop the knowledge, skills and understanding that they need to go forward into educational training and build successful, fulfilling careers. Industry is key to this. The connections that our employers make with our children and communities provide opportunities, and they give hope. I'd certainly like to take the opportunity today to thank you all for the work that you do with our schools and colleges across the UK. You are the change makers, you do inspire, and you can make a difference. Now, I know that today you'll be sharing your learning, development opportunities for collaboration, sharing your commitment and celebrating diversity. And as we come together today, it's important we recognise the difference that we can make in embracing diversity. Tomorrow, as you'll be aware, is International Women's Day, and this year the theme is embracing equity. Now, the words equity and equality are often used interchangeably, but equity recognises that each person has different circumstances and allocates the resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. Here in Newport, as part of our celebrations, we'll publicly demonstrate our commitment to this campaign by lighting our civic centre in purple. But what really matters are the actions that we're taking as an organisation to make this change. Women have long represented a high percentage of the workforce of Newport City Council, but changes in policies, attitude and culture have resulted in an improved level of equality and equity. Women now represent the majority at most senior levels, both officers and politicians, and we've encouraged development at all levels by recognising the barriers that women face and ensuring that our policies and approach ensure equitable opportunities for all. In my organisation, Newport City Council's average pay gap has decreased from 4.8% in 2018 to 0.6% in 2022. The leader, deputy leader, chief executive and strategic director for social services are women. 73% of my heads of service are women. 56% of my cabinet members are women. These are great achievements, But you know what? They're not enough. Our goal is to be an authority which at all levels, political and our workforce, are reflective and representative of the communities that we serve. We've embarked on this journey, but there's still distance left to travel. This is not a journey that's unique to Newport. It's a journey that we're all on together. Together, we can all embrace equity and celebrate diversity, taking real and meaningful actions to ensure that we nurture talent from a foundation that's built on equality, diversity and inclusion. Together, you are at the forefront of innovation here in the UK. Your innovation, your inspiration, your creativity will drive growth and deliver prosperity. You can use your platform to provide opportunity, to embrace equity, and identify and nurture talent irrespective of background and inclusive of protected characteristics. You are the change makers, and I am proud to welcome you here to Newport. Enjoy your conference. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jane. And now I get to welcome Martin, my CEO of CSA Catapult, and Katherine Bennett, CBE, CEO of HVM. Is Katherine coming up with you?
Yes, she is. Yeah,
Let me just flick your slide up.
You coming up on stage? We're a double act normally, Catherine.
Feels like the BAFTAs.
Lights are bright. Right. As the CEO of the youngest catapult in the Catapult Network, as the CEO of the Catapult in a town I was born in, very much like some of our presenters, I am immensely proud that we are hosting this meeting on skills. It's a great moment for myself and for the whole team that are here. We are the youngest catapult and the smallest, but we're part of a network of the government's 9 elite innovation centres across the UK, and that makes it even more special from a sort of skills and innovation point of view. The work we're doing locally was outlined by Alex very well, I must say, and we are very conscious of the fact that we have a skills gap right the way across the compound semiconductor industry due to growth and demographics. And one of the things we have actually recognised, which I know Alex and Claire are working quite strongly on, is, and she referenced it, is we're not actually getting enough young people now going into STEM activities. And we need to really start to encourage parents and youngsters to get back to thinking that engineering is exciting and it's a really worthwhile career. And we obviously have attrition as we go through our lives and everything else, but if we haven't got the numbers of people going in, then we are always going to struggle with skills. So I've got one final question and request for you before I hand over to Katherine, sorry. Has anyone seen this on the bar? Okay, it says, my first job was, and now I'm. And I bet you more than 50 or 70% of the people in this room are not doing now what they did when they left school. I'm certainly not. Hands up who's not doing what they did in school originally. Come on, Lucy, pretty good. I stand right. Okay, this is it. This is lifelong learning. Skills is important. Katherine, I'm handing over.
Thanks very much, and super thanks to everybody who's put this event together. I am really pleased that we are here in Wales, and I'm delighted to welcome you all here today. And actually, I also want to welcome other CEOs from the Catapults who are here in the audience. We have McHugh, my predecessor as chair of the network from Cell and Gene Therapy. We have Stewart from Satellite Applications Catapult. We have Andrew Jameson from the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult, and also we have my Vice Chair of the network, Guy Newey, who will be chairing a panel later. And if I may also do another shout out, it is a bit like the BAFTAs, isn't it? Andy Storer is here, who's from one of my centres, the Nuclear AMRC, and we're delighted Andy's here with his colleague Liz and has brought some of the Rolls-Royce people along today, which is wonderful. And also another Andy Silcox, the head of AMRC Cymru. So we have a site in North Wales, in Wales as well. So warm welcome to all of you. As has been mentioned, we had an event just over a year ago, actually in Coventry, where we launched our Inclusivity and Innovation Charter. It's wonderful. It was a wonderful occasion. I know the other CEOs agree, to get people together from the different catapults. We have 50 locations across catapults in the UK and 5.2 thousand employees. So let's next time have we could fill this venue another time. Of course, in the role I undertake as CEO of high value manufacturing and now obviously the chair of the network, every day I see the importance of making sure we have the workforce we need to deliver on some of the testing goals that we have as a nation. In my whole area, wherever I've worked in industry, and you're right, Martin, we're all in different jobs than we were when we left school, but it's always a question I get about skills. I don't know if any of you have that. Whenever you introduce where you work to new people, they ask you about the skills side. And indeed, we had Michelle Donnellan, the Secretary of State for the new Department of Science, Innovation and Technology, visiting the NCC across the river just yesterday, and we talked to her a lot about skills. So they're absolutely central to our success, whether you're in a business or a technology organisation such as ourselves. We all know it. We do all need to keep learning. Now, on my personal side, I'm on 165 days of Italian on Duolingo. So there's always things to learn. And I've just got a nice quote here that meant a lot to me when I found it. And if you'll permit me, I'll just read it out. In a world that is constantly changing, there is no one subject or set of subjects that will serve you for the foreseeable future, let alone for the rest of your life. But the most important skill to acquire new learning is how to learn. And that was written by a gentleman called John Naisbitt. As Jane Mudd just said, of course, tomorrow is International Women's Day, so looking forward to celebrating that. But we do know we have to reach into every group. We can't afford to carry dated prejudices linked to gender, colour, sexuality, religion, accent, disability, if we want to find the talented people we want across the innovation landscape. But we also know that the skills we need in our teams are changing and changing rapidly. New technologies are driving an evolution in the skills we need to turn our ambition into realities. And how do we keep pace with that? Last year, the World Economic Forum suggested that globally, over 1 billion people needed to be trained in new and evolving skills by 2030. They pointed to demands not just for the specialised technical abilities needed to work with new technologies, but for the softer skills necessary for collaboration, like team building and developing a strong organisational culture. Over 1 billion, that's a big ask. How on earth can we deliver? When the catapults first came into being just over a decade ago, our focus was simply on helping to translate brilliant research into brilliant products, brilliant processes, and brilliant services. But now, of course, the requirements are changing, and I'm delighted that we have in this session today UKRI and Innovate colleagues with us. And Dave Wilkes, who I've given a new title today, he's not Superman, but he's Catapult Man, is also going to be talking to us about the way that we're going to work even more closely on skills with Innovate UK. So we see engaging with skills questions as central to our mission now, a key part of helping the businesses we work with to meet the challenges they face. So I'm super proud to welcome you to today's event, to learn and to share your thoughts on how we could push forward. It promises to be a stimulating afternoon. And I hope that you've had a chance to have a look at some of the exhibition at the side, the VR demos, meet some of the people, and hear more about the excellent work happening across all our catapults. And don't forget, we've got those wonderful people online. Bring people into the room by maybe tweeting or posting about this event using the hashtag Shaping Future Skills. So I'm now going to hand over to Alex, and I'm looking forward to hearing more during the afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin and Katherine. And now we're going to hear from Zoe Conn, who is the Skills Strategy Lead for the Department for Education. She's here now. If you want slides, the clicker.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me to join you today. It sounds like it's going to be a really fantastic discussion. Martin somewhat stole my opening gambit, so I'll ask the question again. By show of hands, how many people here today are doing the job they thought they'd be doing when they were younger? That's what, oh, hello. Personally, I wanted to be a farmer, and then I wanted to be a war correspondent, but reality bites and ideas change. So my second question, how many people in the room have used education or training to develop the skills they need to do the job that you are doing now? Excellent, it worked. I know that I certainly have. I've benefited from generous, knowledgeable leaders who have shared their expertise or encouraged me to take on training that's equipped me with skills to do the jobs that I have done or could do. The point I'm trying to make is that we're all works in progress. We all have talents and skills inside of us waiting to be tapped. We might even surprise ourselves given the right opportunities and support. But as it stands, not enough people have got access to those opportunities that could help them to realise their potential. And it's holding back individuals and our national economy. That is why skills are a top priority for the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, and the Education Secretary. I think we're all here today because we want to tackle the great challenges we face as a nation, whether it's climate change, effective healthcare, or levelling up. I hope that by the end of today, you'll recognise the invaluable role that skills can play in taking on these challenges. So over the next few minutes, I'll talk to you about the issues we're facing in the skills system, the actions that government is taking to address these issues, and how catapults can invest in skills to support your ambitions. And I hope this will give you the context and motivation to go into this afternoon's discussions with lots of ideas. So, why is this government obsessed with skills? At the root of our reforms is the productivity puzzle, which has been challenging the country for some time. UK productivity has stagnated since the 2008 financial crisis. We would have reached 2021 levels of productivity in 2013 if pre-crisis trends had continued. Of course, skills are not the only answer to the productivity puzzle, but they are an important part of the equation. We need a skilled workforce to boost productivity. We need a skilled workforce to support a high-wage, high-value economy with strong growth and innovation. And we need a skilled workforce to create more opportunities for people from all backgrounds to achieve their potential. But as it stands, the UK lacks the higher technical skills that we see in highly productive economies. Currently, we're ranked 6th out of 7 among G7 countries when it comes to higher technical skills, trailed only by Italy. For context, these higher technical skills are at levels 4 and 5, between an A-level and a bachelor's degree. And compared to other countries, we have a high share of graduates, with more than half of young people now going into higher education. We also have a significant proportion of adults with low or no qualifications. A quarter of working-age adults in the UK aren't qualified to A-level or equivalent. And then in between these two extremes, we have higher technical qualifications at level 4 and 5, known as the missing middle. Higher technical education gives people the technical knowledge and the practical skills valued by industry, the skills which support people to progress into and within skilled employment, the skills held by technicians who provide the engine room for some of the world-leading industries represented here today. These are the skills we lack, and yet participation in technical education and training is in decline. We need to reverse this if we're going to achieve the skilled workforce that our economy needs, especially amongst adults, as 80% of the 2030 workforce is already in work today. But we also need to inspire more young people to choose education and training options, which will help them gain the high-value skills and experience to thrive in the workplace and power our future economy. Crucially, we need to make sure that skills provision meets the needs of the labour market now and in the future. I know that those of you who work with employers or are employers yourself will say that you struggle to recruit people with the right skills. The government is trying to change this, but we need your help. The Department for Education is helping to deliver economic growth by building a skills system that is employer-focused, high quality and fit for the future. Our skills reforms provide a ladder of opportunity that enables people to get good jobs and meet the skills needs of priority sectors. The first rung of this ladder is excellent careers advice and guidance to empower people to make the best choices throughout their education and career. We are improving government-backed careers services so that everyone can access impartial, lifelong advice and guidance to help them progress into work or the next stage of their career. The second rung is quality qualifications. We are simplifying and strengthening qualifications at level 3 and below, including introducing T-levels to provide young people with an industry-focused technical alternative to A-levels. And last year, the first cohort of T-level students completed their studies with a fantastic 92% pass rate. At level 4 and 5, higher technical qualifications are providing the gold standard for higher level skills that drive productivity and innovation for industries like those represented here today. The third rung is apprenticeships and the skills employers need. High quality training provided through apprenticeships or skills boot camps will equip people with the relevant skills for the labour market, and our newly established Unit for Future Skills will meet future as well as current skills needs. The final rung is lifelong learning, which we've already heard about today, giving adults the chance to upskill or retrain at any stage of their life. From 2025, the lifelong loan entitlement will transform the way that we access further and higher education. It will give everyone access to the equivalent of 4 years student loan to use flexibly on quality education and training throughout their lives. This is a really powerful new approach, which will be the first system of its kind to be delivered at this scale anywhere in the world. This ladder leads to better jobs, better security and greater prosperity for individuals, and greater productivity, growth and innovation of businesses and the economy. So, why and how can catapults get involved with the skills revolution? Catapults are already driving innovation across the country, transforming great ideas into valuable products and services. And this work is delivering huge impact for our economy. Imagine how many more times you could multiply that impact if you invest in the development of new talent, whether in the existing workforce or in the next generation, to progress ideas and products. Of course, universities generate breakthroughs through research, and we're lucky to have some of the best universities in the world right here in the UK. But innovation needs technicians to drive it forward. Catapults can create opportunities for people to train in technical skills that unlock growth in priority sectors. For example, the high-value manufacturing catapult has worked in partnership with the DFE on the Emerging Skills Pilot, helping to improve our understanding of how to cultivate cutting-edge skills and boost productivity. These pilots have identified emerging skills needs in several areas, helping us to create and deliver training for the workforce. And now the high-value manufacturing catapult is also working with Innovate UK to establish a foresighting hub, which will help to push this work forward. I'm sure Dave will talk more about that in a minute. And this is important because investing in skills is a social mission as well as an economic one. Differences in skills supply are a huge driver of regional inequalities. The cities that grew the most in recent decades, whether they were Oxford, Cambridge, Edinburgh, Reading, had a high share of employment in high skills jobs. The stock of skills available locally determines productivity, economic growth, and living standards. Put simply, higher skills mean higher wages. Training as an apprentice at level 3, A-level equivalent, increases a person's earnings potential by 13%. And training as an apprentice at level 4 or 5 can help that person's earnings jump by 22%. At the age of 30, the average earnings associated with certain higher technical qualifications is actually higher than the average earnings associated with a degree. What's more, firm-level studies show that businesses with more skilled staff are more productive, and 78% of apprentice employers identify increased productivity from training. So I urge everyone in the room today and businesses that you work with to consider how you could grow your talent pipeline with higher technical skills. The government is providing the quality programs that you can trust to develop the skills you need. So let's invest in skills to reach the next frontier of innovation and help more people to surprise themselves with what they can achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. And I have on my notes now that I'm introducing Dave Wilkes, Director of Innovation Ecosystems for Innovate UK, but feel like I should be cueing some dramatic music for Catapult Man. Here we go. Your slides. Just click forward.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex, and thank you very much to Katherine for the earlier introduction, and I will never live that down, so brilliant. This is an amazing event, absolutely fantastic, and particularly for me, if you're wondering what innovation ecosystem means as a job title, one thing it means is I've got responsibility for oversight of the Catapult programme, and the other thing is I've got responsibility for Innovate UK's work on talent and skills. So for me today, what an amazing opportunity to bring those two worlds together. And I should just say, Debbie Johnson in my team, Liaison, is our head of talent and skills. You'll hear from her later, but the work we're doing here is all down to her leadership. So why is Innovate UK interested in this stuff? Well, for those of you who read our plan for action from about a year ago now, putting talent and skills as one of our strong foundations for the future of UK innovation it's the first time Innovate UK has declared talent and skills as being one of our key priorities, right? So that's an incredibly important thing for us to do. And it follows on from the UK Innovation Strategy, which was published over the summer in 21, which also had a pillar for people as being one of the principal areas of development and need and opportunity in innovation in the UK. There was an R&D, people and culture strategy at the same time, and UKRI's own overall strategy also has people as the first pillar. So you can see, we all know what the problem is, right? We all know that without the future skilled workforce, we're wasting our time on the rest of it. And as one of our colleagues said to us recently, if we're successful, if our innovation programs are successful, then we're just creating the skills gaps of the future, right? So we're sort of creating a problem for ourselves. A nice problem to have, but something we absolutely have to address. So what does that mean in practice for Innovate? Well, it means putting talent and skills at the heart of all of this. So we have a focus on 3 big domains in Innovate, so net zero, digital and healthy living and agriculture. And all of the people leading those activities see skills as critical to the success of their future programs. In terms of the growth of the innovative businesses, which is what Innovate UK and the Catapults, we're all here to do. If the skills don't exist in the UK for those businesses to grow, either they won't grow or they'll go elsewhere, and that's a critical problem we need to address. The councillor earlier talked about regional opportunities, and Innovate works very closely with regional leaders, innovation leaders right the way around the UK, and skills is one of the first things we talk about, and it's often where we see the biggest challenges, but also where a lot of the potential solutions are all in those local ecosystems. So we're keen to work very closely with those local innovation leaders. And the last thing on that chart, the little blue circle, is all about Innovate's focus on quality, diversity and inclusion, which Katherine's talked about. An amazing event from the Catapults this time last year, so really great to see the Catapults taking a huge lead in this area. And for us, the critical, obviously the link back to skills, is providing the access to and opportunities for the widest possible talent base, because if we don't take that opportunity, then we will just simply won't have the scale of workforce that we need to solve these challenges in the future. So we've also got the heart of what we're trying to do with talent skills is embed it in everything, right? So it's not just a separate program, but it features in all the programs we do in Catapults and everything else. But we do have some very focused programs. So I'll talk a little bit more about foresighting, which Zoe flagged just now. And of course, you're all here, we're all here because Catapults are so crucial to the success of this program, so crucial to providing future skills for the UK. We're working very closely with providers right the way across the skills base, from universities through to further education colleges, providing a way of building new courses that are going to deliver those skills, but also access for local businesses, SMEs, to the expertise in those places, but also the mobility between universities and business is really important to us as well. And then the final bit I've talked about, ED&I, that's actually, you'll hear much more from us about the International Women's Day tomorrow, but also things like Young Innovators programs where we're trying to get people with disability to think much more about opportunities in the innovation space. So I'll come back to workforce foresighting. So this is one of those big new things which Innovate's trying to take some strong leadership for, working very closely with the Catapults. And brilliantly, this is one of the few screens in the country where the detail is visible and you can read all of this. But this is, you know, I'll just flag that the pioneering work that was done by High Value Manufacturing Catapult in this space, really thinking through the detail from all the way through from horizon scanning, building roadmaps for future technologies, all the way through to what that means for the future of the workforce. And if you're not familiar with this, then there's lots of information available online. It is an inspirational piece of work that's really changed how we've approached this whole piece. And just taking one end of that, which is Innovate UK's role, working very closely with the Catapults on building those future strategies, thinking about what that means for the future of the workforce, really understanding, and this is where Catapults bring real value, is in the flavour of understanding the industry challenges. You know what the opportunities are for industry in the UK, you know what that's going to mean for the future workforce. And then working very closely, Zoe's talked about all the different parts of activities across the Department for Education, the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education, and the Unit for Future Skills. So that's where that foresighting work that we can all do together turns into an understanding of the future demand from employers, and turns foresighting through to forecasting, and then into provision of the skills that we're going to need in the future. And then critically, so what are we going to do about the front end of that? So Innovate's taken an opportunity working with HVMC as a delivery partner, but bringing all the Catapults into this space, setting up this thing we're calling a workforce foresighting hub. So we could have done a bunch of programs on foresighting, and each one of those would have probably had some value, and that would have been fine. But absolutely critical for us was bringing all the stakeholders together, bringing all the parts of that value chain journey together, and taking all the learning, all the data that would be generated by all of those different activities into one place, making all of that available for maximising the future value of that. So that's the challenge we've taken on, working very closely with the Catapults to lead that overall endeavour. And I guess we could talk about this hub. You won't be able to go to a building and see workforce foresighting hub written on the outside, but the community we've built around this together has been really important, and we can effectively say this is now started. Katherine is on our strategic stakeholder programme board, and the work is now kicking off in anger. There's been lots of pilot activities leading up to this point to test and challenge what we need to do in this space, but now we've got an excellent way of working, some really good results already, and this is the time to take it to the next level. So I think I've talked through most of this. One of the key things is about how we structure the data you collect when you do one of these things well. The level of insight is incredible. The level of data that you gather about the current provision, the future opportunities, where the opportunities and where the future provision will come from. All of that's incredibly valuable to UK industry, and we want to ensure through this hub that all of that's available for the widest possible audience to use that to their benefit. And I just want to flag again that this has been a really great example of cooperation between different parts of government, between all of the catapults coming together, between Innovate, all of these different parts of UKRI, taken from some of that early leadership from HVMC, but also from the Gatsby Charity Foundation, who really kick-started a lot of this work as well. So we're really looking forward to the next phase of this work. Really exciting to see this coming together finally, and really looking forward to working with you all to take this forward. So I hope you have an amazing day. Really excited to see you all here in person and online, and look forward to carrying on the conversation for the rest of the day.
Okay, so next we have three Catapult colleagues: Michelle Hitches, Senior Project Manager from Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult; Stephen Stewart, Head of Skills and Apprenticeships, Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult; and Katy Riddington, the Interim Director of Skills, High Value Manufacturing Catapult. Please make your way up to the stage.
Hello, thank you for inviting me to come and speak today. So I'm from our Welsh office down in South Wales. So today I'm going to showcase some of the activities we're doing. So as the renewable energy ramps up across the UK, there's going to be a growing need for a larger workforce to help us deliver our net zero targets. At the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult, we are committed to not only growing the sector, but also growing the future workforce. So to enable this, we take part in many initiatives, not only in Wales, but across the UK. Okay, so through one of our projects, the Milford Haven Energy Kingdom project, we were able to develop some activities around hydrogen, some educational resources, and then we were able to go out to schools and actually deliver. So we've delivered this to over 35 primary schools across Pembrokeshire, and it covered about the future of energy, about where energy's come from already, where it's going, how the students can be involved, but we also got to bring it to life. So we got to bring the River Simple Raza hydrogen car with us, which always enthuses people when they see it. But also we were able to get them to actually make hydrogen, and using a solar panel, they could make their own hydrogen and then power a fan. And just seeing their faces light up when that fan turns, you can see it's all clicking into place with them. So we start that from 5 years old and go all the way up to 13, because we're very committed that the earlier that you can get students to think about renewables, they've got more chance of embedding it then throughout later life. Then we work with Pembrokeshire College on their BTEC engineering course. This is for 14 to 16-year-olds. So on a Friday afternoon, when these students actually don't need to be in school at all, it's actually in their free time, they come to the college and they do this extra qualification on top of all of their GCSEs. Now this is co-delivered with industry, with ourselves, Blue Gem Wind and Bombora. We take it in turns, we spend 2 hours a week with them and bring the curriculum to life, put it in an industry focus. So you can see there, we deliver sort of engineering materials, data digital measurement, so we use a wind turbine and we bring that then, well, how long is the blade? And how would you make that blade? And what challenges will you come across when you make a blade over 100 meters long? And then we do hydrogen, and then we always finish off with a great task about how do you build a turbine. So we bring lots of recycled, empty plastic bottles into the classroom. They work together in little teams and then try and make a floating wind platform with a turbine, which they have to turn on top. And it's always good when the hairdryer goes off, and unfortunately some of them sink and some of them don't. So then moving on the age range, we've got 16 3 learners. And we're not just talking about engineering learners, we're talking about business, IT, because across the renewable sector, you know, it isn't just engineers that we need, there's going to be many skill sets coming. So 1 day a week, it's designated to the Destination Renewables project, which has been developed by DP Energy and EDF. And you can see there's many collaborators in this project. And we go in 2 hours, and again, we work, but we set them challenges. So last week I went in and we had a hydrogen challenge. So we'd asked them, if we had 100 cars for a fleet for Pembrokeshire County Council, how much hydrogen would you need? And after they've worked out how much hydrogen they need, well, how are you going to create that? And what are going to be your challenges? And what innovation are we going to need to be able to power those cars, not just for 1 day, but for 1 year, for 20 years, and to keep it going? And then across the board, this is my personal favourite, is the innovation challenges. And it can be anything, depending on the age range. You've got from 6 weeks to 9 months. And you go in, you give them some background, and you give them the challenge, and then you go away. And they work on that challenge, and then you have a mid-term review to make sure that they're on the right track. And then at the end, depending on the age, they have to do this. They have to stand up and present, because this is what we have to do in everyday life. And they have questions and answer and make it really interactive. So we do examples here about passenger vessels, about moving them to zero emissions, but also about recycling blades. So what would you do? What would you use them for? And then some students will literally just think of new technologies of how to create those blades, rather than even having the blades to have to recycle them. So those are some of the stuff that we do in Wales. But as I said, we do things all across the UK. And in Blyth, which has got our big testing facility, you know, we work with the Northumberland County Council and the Port of Blyth to be able to do the FE education and the Energy Centre Learning Hub. As you can see from all of the things that I've mentioned today, we collaborate. And the more you collaborate together, the bigger impact it makes for the students. And I think that's the key for moving forward. Thank you.
Hi everyone, and thank you for the warm welcome to Wales. My name's Steve Stewart. I'm Head of Skills at the Cell Gene Therapy Catapult, and I just want to talk to you a little bit about the initiatives that we've been putting together around skills, including some of the apprenticeship programs that you've heard of previously. So I always start with this slide. This is our skills demand survey. So every 2 years, the team goes out and they speak to all the different employers in the cell and gene therapy field. So this was done in 2021, we've got another due this year. But this gives us that sense of purpose and tells us what we should be looking to achieve through our skills programmes. So you can see from the bottom left corner, we spoke to 63 companies in 2021, and that was most of the employers, most of the companies that were operating in the sector at that time. So this is a really good analysis of what was actually going on in the sector. The key bit of this is the piece in the middle. So you'll see from the total roles, there was around about 7,000 people employed in the sector in 2021, and it's forecast to increase to 15,114, so an increase of over 100% in the 5 years from 2021 to 2026. So our mission was to help these businesses around our network to tackle that skills issue. So you can see from the chart on the right hand side, we also asked them several questions when we were speaking to them we asked them about the current workforce, but then we asked them where did they expect to source the skills from in the future. So the orange bit at the bottom, 9% of that gap, that 7,000 gap, was expected to come from apprenticeships. 31% was expected to come from grads and postgrads. And then we had some really interesting challenges as well in terms of how do we upskill people within the sector, and then how do we bring people in from outside the sector? How do we get people who've got transferable skills to understand that there's jobs that they are absolutely really useful for, the skills just, their transferable skills will fit absolutely what we need, but they never heard of the sector, they didn't give it a moment's thought. So we had a real big issue of how do we get some new talent into our sector. So current activity, so we've been working on an advanced therapies apprenticeship community since 2018, and this is all about collaboration across the industry. So we, with 8 pioneering companies at the start, we created an apprentice programme. Now, apprenticeships weren't really well utilised in our sector. Some of the bigger companies were using them. Some of the smaller companies saw barriers, whether it be the bureaucracy, whether it be headcount. It was really difficult for those guys to enter that apprenticeship field. So through the power of collaboration, we supported them. We supported them with attraction and building the programme. We went out into the market and helped them get those jobs advertised and help them with social media and different campaigns so that we could reach into a wider talent pool. And we also help with that on-programme management and collaboration. And for me, the real unique selling point of our apprenticeship community is some of the enrichment activity we do. So at companies where you've only got 1 or 2 apprentices, it can be quite a lonely experience, but what we do is we bring everybody together. We've got nearly 300 apprentices now. So we hold different sessions, be it giving them depth as well as breadth, giving them some additional technical knowledge within the advanced therapies field. We also recognise that people leaving are leaving because they've not got used to the job, because they found it difficult to transition to that first job. So we give them some behavioural training as well and do some of the softer skills and help them get used to that first, potentially what could be their first role in the workplace. We've also got another programme called ATSTM, which is the Advanced Therapy Skills Training Network, and there's 3 core components of this. One is our online training platform. So we pulled together all the training in the sector, speaking to the learning and development specialists at the different businesses. They found it was really difficult to find out where the best training was and to access it. So we set up an online training platform. It's got everything from technical resources through to leadership resources. We've got virtual reality on there where you can book into VR sessions. And it's anything from a fast-paced video that takes 10-15 minutes of your day through to booking onto a more in-depth course, such as one of the National Training Centre courses, which could be 4 or 5 days long. So there's over 750 learning items on there, and it's completely free for users. And the idea is that we can help people. If you go think back to the pie chart that was on the right-hand side of the previous slide, that's helping people in the sector upskill. I mentioned we've got 3 national training centres, so we've got one operating in Scotland with the support of Sulsa and Roslin. We've got the University of Birmingham, who are represented there today with Ivan, and we've got the National Horizons Centre on Teesside. And between those, over the last 2 years, they've developed and delivered some fantastic training that can be accessed face-to-face. So it's really filled a gap that the online training platform wasn't, to give people that really deep face-to-face understanding. We've got everything on there from induction programmes through to giving people more depth And it was driven by industry need, as was the online training platform. So everything that we've put on there, we've spoke to industry and made sure it's absolutely what they need and it's of a quality that they really expect. So we've got little working groups that will make sure that the quality is absolutely there. And then the final piece of the jigsaw was the attracting people into our sector from outside. So we've developed a career converter, and then through the weird, mysterious arts of data science, people can upload the CV, they can upload the job title, they can upload the job description. In the background, the career converter will process that, and it'll give them an idea of potential transferable skills they've got to come and work in our sector, and an idea of which roles that they'll be suited for. Also highlights the gaps, so it can feed people back through into the online training platform or to the national training centres where they can fill those particular skills gaps that they've got. So that's really, really, really useful in trying to get people who just absolutely wouldn't have an idea that they could work in our sector to come and apply and really grow that base and help us fill that skills gap. We're currently working with over 10,000 military leavers where we're getting the career converter in front of them because we've been identified a real issue with supply and logistics. So we thought that'd be a really great match to attract people in. And we've also developed some labs in Stevenage with the support of Hertfordshire LEP, and they are just going into, they've just developed their prospectus and they're putting courses on now at the moment. So just to bring it all together, how are we impacting ED&I through our programmes? So we found when we went to careers fairs, be this early talent, be this 13, 14, 15-year-olds, or whether it was going to meet a more mature audience that were looking to transition job roles, we found that when we were speaking to them, as soon as we mentioned advanced therapies, as soon as we mentioned science, they couldn't get away quick enough. They were physically backing off from the stand because they were terrified. They thought, I couldn't fit in that sector, I couldn't work there. And with University of Birmingham and 4+, we'd already developed a module which was helping people train on some good manufacturing practice, so people could utilise the headset, put that on and have a virtual experience. We tested it out at the picture up there on the left was the Black Graduates Careers Conference, and we tested it out. People loved it. It gave them a real insight into what it was like working in our environment, and it gave us that opportunity to speak to them and break the ice and have a really good conversation. So with the support of 4+, they developed a virtual reality package which takes people from bench to bedside, so it gives you a little bit of the patient story, a little bit of the science behind it, and takes you into one of our labs virtually. And that's been a really, really great opportunity for us to kind of break the ice and help people envisage what it's like to work in our sector and then entice them to apply. Bottom left, we make sure that apprentices have got a voice in our organisation, so I was really impressed with what everyone said before about apprenticeships, and we're still very much on that road of developing our apprenticeship programme. But our apprentice community, led by Rochelle, who's second from left on that, we make sure that everything we're doing with that apprentice programme, we've got that voice of apprentices as well as the voice of employers to make sure that we're doing the right things to get those apprentices into business and make them feel part of that company that they're working for. And then we've got 2 apprentices with us today. So Lucy in the centre at the top. Lucy's just won the Laboratory Science Apprentice of the Year at Kent. Yeah. And that's a fantastic achievement. Well done, Lucy. And that's a fantastic achievement. And if you get a chance to speak to Lucy later, Lucy's come into science from a completely different career, completely different background, and has embraced the challenge of working in our environment. So to achieve that in her first year is absolutely fantastic. And on the right-hand side, we've got Amelia, who's also here today. Amelia's a great story. She took a level 3 apprenticeship, and then she's followed that on by gradually progressing with the apprenticeships that she's doing. So moving through that career and continuing to learn, which is one of the things that the Advanced Therapies apprenticeship community can do for you. And Amelia's worked, or is working with University of Oxford, so she's worked on the vaccine, the Oxford Biomedical vaccine, so she's done some fantastic work already in what's the early stage of her career. And we've been recognised as well. We were awarded the Princess Royal Trust Award for Excellence in Training, which we are on a journey. We'd love to learn more from everybody in this room, which is why it's so exciting to be here. But we've made a good start, and we've got some things that we could potentially share as well. So just quickly looking at the impacts, we've got 292 apprentices on programme, hopefully 300 by the end of March, because it's my appraisal and I said I'd get to 300. We've got 85% retention, and that that is really, really powerful, because that comes from that unique selling point of getting the apprentices together and forming that network. So we've made them form a really strong bond and connect, especially when there's only one or two at different organisations. For the ATSTN, we've got over 2,000 people using the programme. We've had over 8,000 learners, and those guys are continuing to do some great things. It was a real challenge with COVID getting face-to-face learning on, but in particular University of Birmingham, who are here today, they've helped us with the virtual reality technology, and now they're looking at rolling that out to T-level students, because T-levels have always been really difficult to give people that really rich experience of getting into a lab or getting onto a site, and hopefully through virtual reality we can give a consistent, really rich experience that breaks through some of the bureaucracy of not being allowed in certain parts or certain areas of the site. So lots of really exciting things still going on. And the skills training lab, very early in its launch. There's prospectus out there at the moment, but we're starting to hold more and more courses there and engage with our collaborators. So, quick snapshot. I can tell the story, but I can't tell it as well as Lucy and Amelia. So if you get a chance, have a chat with them today, and they'll bring it to life far better than I can. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Katy.
Hello, everybody. Oh, is anybody else cold? Yeah, it's very cold. Right, thank you very much, and thank you for welcoming me here today. Michelle and Stephen have focused on building the pipeline of skills talent. I'd like to change that focus a little bit and think about the existing workforce, obviously with a special focus in and around manufacturing. It's well documented that manufacturers are struggling to find the skills to sustain their industry, and they expect this challenge to grow due to a tricky mix of productivity demands, changes in demographic profiles, and fast-paced emerging technologies. Recent figures from Make UK estimate that there are 95,000 manufacturing vacancies in the UK, 36% of which are deemed as hard to fill due to a lack of appropriate skills. This gap represents an approximate loss in productivity of around £8 billion per annum, which equates to £21 million per day. Filling the pipeline with new entrants is absolutely critical, and we've had some fantastic talks today about how that's being made possible. But our employers are increasingly focused on upskilling and retraining their existing employees, both to ensure that their technical skills keep pace with changing needs and to retain the talent in the business over the longer term. The question for us is, how do we, the HVMC and the Catapult Network, play our part in ensuring that those individuals have the right skills at the right time and in the right place to deliver the industrial transformation and economic growth that the UK industry needs. So the next slide you might recognise. Here's one we prepared earlier. The skills value chain, by adopting a systematic approach to shaping future skills, the skills value chain. Taking the extraordinary technology that we work with every day and working with others to embed the knowledge and skills in people so that it becomes there every day. That is what the skills value chain will help us to achieve. So how do we apply this within an HVMC context of upskilling and reskilling? The first focus that I'd like to talk about is around that line of sight from our technology and sector roadmaps to future skills needs. Within the HVMC, the foresighting of future technology and innovation and providing mechanisms to translate this into industrial applications is our raison d'etre. It's what we do every day. Ensuring that our engineering communities consider skills at the beginning of that journey along a technology and a sector roadmap is absolutely critical. Skills can't be talked about when you come to the end and you think, I've got to have the people now to embed that technology and innovation. Where are they? You have to do it at the beginning. And linking those technology and sector roadmaps to our future skills needs is absolutely critical. A good example of where this has worked well has been around the electrification skills framework that was put together with WMG, the Faraday Institute, and HVMC. The framework approach works closely with industry to establish their current and ongoing needs in terms of competencies that will enable them to compete within the market as it changes and grows. The core of the work is the engagement with a large group of stakeholders from a wide range of sectors that would not traditionally be engaged in skills work together to establish the need, participate in curriculum design, and benefit from the work undertaken. Critically, the framework paved the way for a single version of the truth to be available to employers, eliminating the guesswork in finding high-quality, relevant training. The framework provides opportunities for upskilling, reskilling, and new skills activities, which enables greater mobility of the workforce. We need to replicate the work done around the electrification framework with other emerging sectors, for example, hydrogen, offshore wind, shipbuilding. Next week, we'll see the launch of the Hydrogen Skills Alliance, which aims to convene a national group of stakeholders to identify key challenges in areas facing the UK in delivering a step change in hydrogen use. Once these challenges are established, we'll be working with the Foresighting Hub to complete the skills foresighting activity to identify those skills gaps and to create a clear framework of the skills needs. So that's very much focusing on the convening and the front end of the skills value chain. If we move into the middle and think about curation, HVMC have demonstrated what a collaborative approach to content creation can achieve, both within our own network and working with other stakeholders within the wider skills landscape. I know that it's already been mentioned, but as part of the Emerging Skills Pilot, over 50 short courses were developed and made available on open government licence to all training providers, FE colleges, HE. And the modules included additive manufacturing, advanced materials, I had to think then, industrial digitalisation, and obviously electrification. Most recently, our centres have been collaborating on a suite of introductory hydrogen modules that again will be made freely available to industry and educators. Each short module is available online and supports all aspects of the hydrogen value chain. Make it, move it, use it. Across our HVMC network, there are over 250 short courses offered by our centres, covering all of our technologies and delivered using a variety of methods. Traditional classroom-based teaching is delivered through all of our 7 centres. Online learning. We have currently over 35,000 learners enrolled on our online programmes offered by the centres. We work on site with our customers, knowing that it's difficult for our customers to actually release individuals to undertake off-the-job training. So we go to our customers' facilities and work with them on specific training programmes, looking at very targeted skills shortages where we can support and help. And we utilise our facilities as learning factories where individuals can come together, experience problem-based learning environments, and test activities on industrial scale kit and equipment. So, what next? I've included on here 2 maps, the top one of which is our HVMC network, the bottom one of which includes all of our Catapult network. Wouldn't it be amazing if in 12 months' time, when we come to sit here and talk again next year, that we've established ways of collaborating and sharing all of the skills that we do across the network through all of those centres, not just through the HVMC centres, but through the whole Catapult network. If you look at the combined effort that we have created in and around skills, in upskilling and reskilling, sharing that and collaborating and enabling each other to deliver and work together to diffuse those skills is absolutely key. So hopefully this time next year we'll have got some more of those collaborations in place and we'll be working together. So that's the end from me. The next thing I would like to do is to invite Charlotte and Rhodri to the stage, who are two Nuclear Skills Academy graduate apprentices who are going to come and do a quick talk on their experiences. So please welcome them to the stage.
Prynawn da, diolch am cael ni yma heddiw. Thank you for having us over here today. So I'm Rhodri Slaven. I'm originally from up in North Wales, so yes, it is nice to be back in my home country. I'm a first year apprentice with Rolls-Royce and their new scheme they're with. I'm one of 200 that they've employed, and there's like many different routes you can follow. So specifically, I've followed the nuclear engineering degree scheme. And that is located in Derby. So we've got our own building over there. We call it the iHub, or what you most likely know it as is the Nuclear Skills Academy. So a little bit about myself. Like I said, I am natively Welsh. I'm a Welshman and I'm first language Welsh. And I moved to Derby to be a part of this course. So it gives you an understanding of how good it is. I moved from my little Welsh bubble. I did my school. I went through A-levels like most of you guys did, and then I faced the trouble as what everybody did. Am I going to go uni? Am I going to take a year out? What am I going to do with myself? So most people just go uni, pick a course and just follow it and see where they end up. Me specifically, I weren't sure what I wanted to do, so I took my year out. I took my time with it. And in this time I found out about Rolls-Royce and their opportunity and their new scheme they had on. I thought it was a brilliant opportunity, and I handed myself in on that opportunity as soon as I could. I did also apply for the University of Bristol, however, to have a backup plan, as you should. I had aeronautical engineering in hand, but I decided not to follow the usual route, change it up a little bit, as this was such a good opportunity to be on. So why I chose this programme? I've always had a keen interest in aerospace, which is how I originally came across Rolls-Royce. I had an interest in space, and that's exactly how I found it. So Rolls-Royce had got a future plan of doing nuclear in space. So with that, I found myself reading up about the nuclear scheme and how much we really need it in this day and age and how effective it is. I know there's a lot of political aspect into nuclear. Most people believe that it's chemical uses, it's really bad for the environment. But what they don't understand, if we really read into it, is how much we need it and how much it is the driving force to reach our net zero emissions in the future. So this is what originally got me into Rolls-Royce, and this is how I ended up here where I am now. So why wouldn't you want to be a part of such a big company? They're one of the best company in the world. Top 5 in the program that we had, in the presentation I had the last week. So it's really good to have it, and at such a good and a young age, I believe, to get us down there and doing it from school. I've got so many mates that have just gone to uni. They personally have no idea what they want to do. They've got maybe a physics degree that they're doing, and then you ask them, what do you want to do? Oh, I'll be an accountant. And they're like, oh, well, that doesn't link up, does it? So I believe it's a good way to do it. Is that Rolls-Royce gives you many different options. I got placement, so you go through different aspects in the company, do different bits and bobs everywhere, so you can really know what you want to do and what you want to specialise at the end of the 4 years. It's a really specialised programme that they're doing. I get first-hand experience by specialists who are leading the nuclear commissioning at the moment. I get paid for it at the same time, so why wouldn't I want to do that? And also I get a degree at the end of it. So similar to my mates, I also get a degree, but I get paid and I don't get 50k debt as well. Plus I get the specialist treating as well. So experience to date, so what have I done with them so far? So I've been working with Rolls-Royce for 5 months now. I started in September. In this time, I'm just staying in the iHub building that they have built, so in Derby where they built that new building just for the Apprentice. I'm currently in that, doing all my academic side of it, so I'm doing all my mechanical, electrical and materials manufacturing, which Kate touched on earlier and the importance of it. So yeah, I'm doing that. I've also got, Rolls-Royce have got a partnership with JCB down in, or up in Uttoxeter. So I travel to JCB there and do my handwork, so I use machining equipment such as milling, I do a bit of welding, I do some hand fitting here and there as well. I think that's really important, especially for people my age, so you learn the basic understanding of material and manufacturing processes, so you can use it when you go up in the business, when you go into design or something, you'll be able to apply that knowledge into manufacturing and designing your product yourself. So what am I looking forward to in the future? So I'm still in my early career with Rolls-Royce. I have no idea what I want to specialise in yet, which is why I think it's such a good idea to join them, as they be putting me around the business. I'll go in different areas. I am thinking about specialising in electrical, so I'm really excited to apply my knowledge from the university into that sector and to develop my learning and understanding of the company and how it works. I'd just like to pass yourself over to Charlotte, who's going to talk to you a bit about her time with Rolls-Royce.
Hi, so I'm Charlotte Ford, like Rhodri said. I'm doing a slightly different course to what he's doing. Mine's business management, so the nuclear business management degree apprenticeship. So just a little bit about myself. I'm born and bred in Derby, so the heart of Rolls-Royce. And I took a year off after my A-levels because, similar to Rhodri, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I found that my school in particular very much pushed the university route, but I just kind of knew that wasn't something I wanted to pursue. So I took a year off, tried some things out. I tried accountancy, which I'm not too sure why I tried that because I don't like maths, but I very quickly realised that that wasn't what I wanted to do. So I then worked in property for a bit, which I loved, but just knew it wasn't something I wanted to do long term. So while I was working in property, I was looking to do a similar degree to this one, but pay for it myself and do it part-time, where Stephen Layton, who helped create the Nuclear Skills Academy, came to me and told me about this opportunity, and I just knew that it would kind of be perfect for me because it was almost the exact degree that I was looking for, yet they were paying for it, and of course it was such a good opportunity with Rolls-Royce. So I applied for that straight away, and as soon as I got the job I was really, really, really happy with it. Sorry, I've lost myself here. I'm currently coming to the end of my 6-month first placement, so I'm doing project management at the minute, which I've absolutely loved. Obviously, we can't talk too much about it as it's in Rainsway and it's all kind of top secret. We had to sign an NDA, which is always kind of cool to tell people. But I've absolutely loved my time so far working for Rolls-Royce, and I'm really excited to see what the future brings because there's so much opportunity within Rolls-Royce, especially for young people. They're always saying how important apprentices are, and that we're basically the future of the business. So it's a really good opportunity for people to be taking. Thank you.
Cheers, thanks.
Oh, diolch, thank you. It was so interesting to hear a different perspective. And that leads me on to our final speaker for this session, Ruby, who also came through the apprenticeship route, but is now the Innovation Delivery Manager for DigiCat. We will break straight after Ruby ends. We'll have a full 30 minutes, so then convene straight into the workshops. It'll probably be about 10 minutes later than planned.
Hi everyone, I'll try and keep this as interesting and engaging as possible, as I know you've been listening for a very long time now. So my name's Ruby and I'm an Innovation Delivery Manager at Digital Catapult. I'm just here to tell you a little bit about myself, my journey, and what has actually brought me here today. So to give you a brief overview, I've been at Digital Catapult for 3 years now. I started as an apprentice and now I've worked my way up to a managerial position. I've done 2 apprenticeships at Digital Catapult. This is a level 3 in business and then a level 4 in project management. And I feel that they've really supported me every step of the way. 3 years ago, I would have never imagined that I'd be up on this stage right now talking to you all, but it's the skills that I've learned along the way that's given me the toolkit to do so. So just a little bit about prior to Digital Catapult. I left school after sixth form with 11 A star to C grades at GCSE. I knew that the traditional route of sixth form and university did not suit my learning style at all. So I actually left school when I was 17 with only my GCSEs and my drive to work behind me. From the ages of 17 to 19, I worked at a plumbing company as a sales dispatch operative, and this gave me my real first taste of office experience and working with a team and a business together. From this experience, I gained the skills that I knew that I enjoyed working with the team and working with members of the general public as well. When I was 19, I decided that it was time for a new adventure. So I actually left and went travelling around Southeast Asia for 5 months. This was a totally new challenge as I was so young, trying to navigate around a totally different continent with no experience of doing this before. But when I came back, I really knew that I was ready to kickstart my career. I'd like to describe myself as quite open-minded and ready to try new things, and this is why I knew an apprenticeship would be the best opportunity for me. I'm definitely more of a hands-on learner, and I was ready to soak up any knowledge that was given to me. When I started applying for roles, I learned 2 major skills. This was patience and perseverance. Applying for an apprenticeship in the UK takes a lot of work. I went through hundreds of applications. I didn't receive any feedback on any unsuccessful applications or even any acknowledgement that I'd applied for anything. I was also trying to juggle a full-time role and finding a role that was best suited for me. I'd already gained that office experience, so I didn't just want to start in any career just to gain that office experience in the first place. I really wanted to kickstart my career in something that I could build over time. I then came across an apprenticeship provider called Multiverse, who I'd really recommend if you are looking to hire apprentices into your business, and they helped me massively on my career journey. They have a range of different courses, roles and industries that you can apply for, and the difference between Multiverse and other apprenticeship providers is that rather than sending off your CV to a load of companies that may want to take you as an apprentice, you actually build a digital profile with Multiverse. This contains a video of yourself, any other key information such as experience so far, and also some prompting questions that let you give off a little bit of flavour of your personality. Multiverse was really helpful, and they had a call to understand what kind of role you were looking for, what courses you were interested in, so that they could find the role that was best suited for you. When they sent me through the role at Digital Catapult as an Innovation Coordinator Apprentice, I didn't actually have any idea what this even meant. I'd never heard of the job title before, and I didn't actually know that this work had even existed. But from the job description, there was a few key points that really stood out to me. The first one was learning about advanced digital technologies such as 5G, VR, AR, AI, machine learning, as I knew that this is something that's going to be really crucial to my future. I also like the idea of working with the team to plan and run events with external stakeholders, as stakeholder management is something that I really wanted to develop. And then finally, working with internal stakeholders, as I knew that this is something that I'd really enjoyed in my first job. Although it was something that I'd never even heard of before, I thought that it would be a great learning opportunity and something that I had an interest in. So I asked them to put me forward for the role. To my surprise and my delight, I got the interview. The first step was a telephone interview with Karimi. This was a lady in HR who supported the apprentices. Karimi was a really big part of my journey, as she was one of our biggest cheerleaders all along the way of our apprenticeships. After the telephone interview was successful, I had an in-person interview with Karimi, Evelyn and Caroline, who would both be my line managers throughout my apprenticeship. In this interview, I had to create a presentation on a startup business that was using advanced digital technologies. Little did I know that I would be using these presentation skills to come throughout my career journey, as it's something that I almost do every day at Digital Catapult. Presenting, public speaking and creating decks is something that I've developed massively at Digital Catapult. So my presentation was actually on Monzo and how they had become a successful online bank, as they were very disruptive in the market at the time and they were using distributed ledger technologies. After the interview, I was actually invited back to watch the Augmenter Showcase, which is an immersive program that we run at Digital Catapult, just to understand if this is something that I'd be interested in pursuing. Little did I know that this is actually something that I'd be working on later on in my career journey. After I understood that it was something of interest to me, I was offered the job. So my first day was very daunting. I was walking in with no prior experience in the industry and I was surrounded by so many talented people. Luckily, there was actually one other apprentice that was starting on the same day as me. This is Kerwin, who's been doing our VR demos this morning, and he was part of the immersive team. Kerwin was always my go-to person throughout the apprenticeship, as we were able to share all of our experiences and talk about any learnings that we had so far in the apprenticeship. I then had the next month of getting to know the business, all the teams, their different functions, and how Digital Catapult actually works in general. As you know, the Catapult is a confusing enough business model to navigate around, but I had a great team to help me along the way. Then one morning, we were all in the office getting ready to start the day at work. We had an update from Jeremy, our CEO, and it was time to pack our bags and go home because we were going to be working at home for the next couple of weeks due to the state of the pandemic. This was a bit of a worrying time as I was just starting to get to know people and getting to know the people that I'd be working with. But we all went home to figure out the next steps. Working from home was a huge adjustment for me. Not only had I just started a new company, but I'd never worked at home before, ever. This was a totally new experience, and I was also sharing the house with others who are working from home. So as many people know, trying to find kind of a schedule to work around and working around other people in the house was a very difficult time for everyone. But the way we adapted needed to be rapid and efficient. I also needed to adapt my own ways of working to make sure that I was still able to learn and still keep engaged to what I was doing. I'm definitely more of a people person, so working from home alone was a very big challenge for me, as it would be many people. We also had to move all of our programs online. This meant that we were learning a new remote platform, so how we can use Zoom, and how we can actually keep this engagement up with companies in the workshops. There was a lot of strategy sessions about how we're going to keep the accelerator programs exciting and engaging, as well as how we're going to keep our employees' mental well-being up as well. So this really helped me to continue to develop relationships within the business at the time. Although it was a crazy, strange time, Digital Catapult really did help us, and they kept us up to date every step of the way of the pandemic. As soon as it was safe to do so, they also allowed us to trial coming into the office, which was a really big help for me, as I knew that I worked better around people and in person. So another major challenge that I've had to overcome was imposter syndrome. After speaking with a lot of senior colleagues, I don't think it's something that we ever get rid of, and I think it's something that we all face in this room today. But I really think it's about how much we can minimise this is what's important. So I think that we're all supposed to be in these kind of roles because we deserve to be here from the hard work that we've put in. But when I first walked into our office and I saw the views of the Great British Library and St Pancras, I did feel somewhat out of place. I think the way that I flipped my mindset on this is rather than thinking that everyone knows more than me, I flipped it and thought, how much can I actually learn from everyone in the room? And taking it as a good thing that there was so much diverse talent that I'd be able to learn something new every day. Another thing that I really overcome massively was my project management exam that I had to do as part of my apprenticeship. To give you some context, I spent the first year at Digital Catapult doing a level 3 in business. This included a multiple choice exam, an endpoint assessment interview, and then finally a portfolio of work that I created over the year. The level 4 project management course was a lot more challenging and intense. What I had to do this was a 3-hour written APM exam, also a portfolio of work and a assessment interview as well. When I first started the course, I was going through a lot of personal struggles that at the time I had no idea how I was going to retain all of this information. From Multiverse, I was sent the largest book in the post, and I was expected to read and learn all of this information, and I just had no idea where to even start. This was all in preparation for the 3-hour written exam that would take place 6 months from then. I found it very difficult to retain the information at first, and Digital Catapult was very supportive, and I felt comfortable enough to tell my manager how I was feeling, and we put a plan together in place to help me through this time. I knew that one thing that made me feel better was definitely seeing people, so I made sure to make use of the office as much as possible. Once I was in a better headspace, I needed to start revising for my 3-hour project management exam. This was a real struggle because I hadn't done an exam since my GCSEs at school, and I had no idea where to even start with the revision. I think one piece of advice that I've learned along the way is that everyone has a different learning style, and that's okay. I found out that I'm very much a visual learner, so when reading the book that they'd provided me, nothing was going in. There was all of these project management methodologies, and none of it was making sense to me. The way that I overcame this was actually by developing my own way of learning. So as part of the innovation team, I was used to making a lot of different decks and presentations. So how I went about it was actually making a presentation for each module with visuals, videos, so that my brain was actually stimulated and that I could actually retain this information. Prior to the exam, I decided to record myself speaking out all of the presentations and listen to them back like a podcast. This way I'd written down all the information, I'd then spoken it out, and then I'd listened back to it. Everyone learns in completely different ways, and that is okay. I just had to find the way that would best work for me. And to my delight, I did pass my APM exam. So just a few key moments that have helped me with my development. So I've worked on a variety of different projects at Digital Catapult. This includes Innovate UK funded projects, commercial projects, and I've also been involved in a number of different non-project work initiatives that have really helped me develop my skills. Just to name a few, I was part of a mentoring scheme within my first year of my apprenticeship, and I was mentored by Sean at Westminster City Council. I was also part of the Multiverse Outreach Leader Scheme. This was another extracurricular activity that I'd signed up to as part of my apprenticeship. This is where I'd actually go and talk to schools and colleges about to students about why they could choose an apprenticeship as a route, as an alternative to university. I felt that this is something that was very close to my heart, as this is the route that I decided to take as well. I've also worked on the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow competition. So this was the first commercial project that I'd worked on at Digital Catapult, and it was a project for 16 to 25-year-olds to come up with an idea to solve a societal issue. I felt that this was something that was quite close to my heart, as it was very interesting that I was the only member of the team that was on the project from start to finish. So I really became the expert of knowing what was going on, and I was also the main point of contact for the stakeholder throughout the project. I also really enjoyed this project because I learned about how we would run a showcase, as it was the first showcase that was run after lockdown. We also run this showcase at Samsung's KX venue, so I had to learn about what we were doing as at an external venue as well. I was also involved in every step of the project, so this would be setup, judging, delivery and sign-off. I'm just going to finally talk about the project that I've most recently worked on. So this is the Niantic Augmented Reality Accelerator. This project was all about how companies can use AR and what they wanted to build a demonstrator on. So this was the first project that I'd actually managed and led on my own. This was a really interesting project as we run challenge framing workshops with the clients, Cartoon Network and Studio Ray McGregor, and this really helped me build great relationships with the client. We also had regular check-ins with the Niantic US team, and in phase 1 of the project we had a pitching competition where 3 companies for each challenge pitched to the client to let them know what their idea was going to be and what they are proposing to build for the demonstrator. In phase 2 of the project, we selected 1 startup for each challenge, and they actually built the demonstrator over a sprint. And it was amazing to see every step of the process and being that main point of contact for everyone involved in the project. The Niantic showcase was probably one of my biggest achievements to date. Niantic came over from the US, and I built such a good relationship with them that it felt like we had already met when we first met. We had over 156 people register for the event, with 108 external attendees actually attending the event. This was on the February the 2nd, and the event felt great as it showed all my hard work and that it had actually paid off as well. And this moment felt like a great accomplishment. So finally making that transition to manager has been really exciting. I'm now managing the new apprentice in my team, Yuma, and I feel that I can give him really great advice as I know exactly how it feels to be in his shoes. He's actually going through the same course that I started on, level 3 in business, so I'm really that support and can give him any advice that he needs throughout his time. Just any advice for anyone looking to hire apprentices or are working with apprentices at the moment, I think it's really important that as long as they're willing to learn and that they're excited about the work, really great things can come from them. And it's been a really great journey so far. So I'd really like to thank Digital Catapult for the opportunity because it's really helped me kickstart my career in the best way possible. There's been so many great people to help me learn along the way, and now I'm really ready to share my knowledge and help any other apprentices that may be in a similar situation now. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Ruby, and all our speakers from this first session. So we are going to break now. The workshops will start at 3:20. If you have a blue dot, the ED&I workshop is in meeting room 4B. A green dot is 4A, and a yellow dot is in the networking space, which I think is where you had lunch and where coffee is going to be served now. Online attendees, goodbye, and please rejoin us at 4:05. So thank you very much. Hi, welcome back. I hope you all managed to have a Welsh cake and a cup of tea. Welcome back to those people online. We are going to start with our expert panel, chaired by Guy Newey, CEO of Energy Systems Catapult, and he is joined by Debbie Johnson, Head of Innovation, Talent and Skills, Innovate UK, Oishee Kundu, Research Associate, Lab, Cardiff University, Kate Barclay, Skills and Talent Consultant for UK Bioindustry Association, and Amar Abid-Ali, Chief Commercial Officer at CSA Catapult. There are going to be questions at the end of this session, which Guy will lead us through. So, thank you.
Thanks so much, Alex. So, a very warm welcome to this last session, thinking, and we've been given the task of trying to bring together the various threads that have gone through the afternoon discussions, which is quite a daunting task. As Alex said, I'm Guy Newey, I'm Chief Exec of the Energy Systems Catapult. One of the things that really landed with me was that excellent presentation from Ruby from the Digital Catapult, and she asked that question about, does imposter syndrome ever go away? Not in my experience, and I suspect in lots of others. And as somebody who's been a CEO for 6-7 months, continuing to learn, continuing to develop your skills is a key way of trying to manage that feeling. So I'm sure we'll get into other areas today. So we're going to briefly going to introduce the panel they're going to talk about, and I'm going to ask each of the panelists to give very brief, punchy key points that they want to make, because this is the last session of the day. I'm really keen that we make this as interactive as possible, so I'm going to be coming out to the audience for questions and any key points that you want to land from later on, particularly from some of the some of the sessions, the breakout sessions, where not everyone would have been in. So keen to hear about this, what people have taken away. And we've got this is a fantastic panel to try and bring it all together later on. We've got Debbie, who's the head of innovation, talent, and skills at Innovate UK. Had a shout out earlier from Dave. This is her in real life. Just been working on this issue for a long period, trying to grapple with it in the innovation space and other areas, including working in the construction sector. I think it's safe to say one sector which hasn't quite nailed this challenge and absolutely needs to. Next speaker, we've sat them in slightly confusing order, just to confuse me, I think, as much as anything else, is Dr. Kate Barclay. She works on skills and talent with the UK Bioindustry Association. She's got 25 years of senior experience in the biopharma industry. But has become kind of really important in building up the institutional capability in that sector, thinking about apprentices, technical education. And what I really liked about this is talk about a busman's holiday, is that when she's not doing this, she volunteers in Hertfordshire, where she's from, to help out with careers advice and skills development with schools in Hertfordshire. So that is a commitment to skills and development, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Our third speaker will be Oishee Kundu, who's a research associate at Cardiff University. She's particularly looking at this question of public procurement. Now, when you talk about, we all know that if you start thinking about innovation, you don't have to be thinking about it for very long before you run into procurement questions. How can we procure in a way that is going to support innovation, that is going to support the kind of skills we need? And then our last speaker will be Abid-Ali, who's the Chief Commercial Officer at the compound Semiconductor Catapult, and he's had a career across the electronic space, semiconductors, processors, all of these things which as a mere energy person I can not understand at all, although I know that it's going to be absolutely massive in the energy space, as it's already been very significant in other areas. So the way this is going to work, I'm going to ask the panel to do a quick set of introductory remarks. Then I'm going to go to questions both from the audience here and online, so I encourage you to put them in. Alex is going to wave at me in a specially pre-organised signal. Yep, that's it, waving her right hand. If there are any questions from online, and don't worry, I've got stacks of questions for the audience to get through. So right, over to panel, starting with Debbie.
Sorry, thank you everybody. It's been great to be here today, and I am going to take some of the lines that I've heard today because a lot of messages have particularly resonated. The first one being, for Innovate UK, our focus is very much on making innovation every day. And why I like that statement which Katy made earlier was we're not only concerned about how we make innovation every day, so how we support innovative businesses in realising their innovations, but as has been indicated, particularly in the construction sector, we also need to figure out and support the workforce in making our innovations an everyday thing, so embedding them across our skills and education system. So these are things that we're particularly interested in. I think some of the challenges that we've got, again, resonating with the comments this afternoon, we know that a lot of our workforce today is our workforce of the future. How do we make sure that we're supporting them? How do we make sure that we're reskilling and upskilling? And how do we make sure we're doing that in a way that is easy for the individual? We all want to be in schools, we all want to be accessing graduates, we all want to get the best talent from our university system, but we're all competing at the moment. How do we do these things in a more coherent way, particularly like the cell and gene talent example? And I think, how can the Catapult Network actually make this a far easier space for individuals, for businesses, and for the education system? We want to do lots of work, and part of it is about how do we think more creatively. We're going to have to, if this talent pool is reducing, how do we access global talent? How do we access the UK's talent? And how do we think about maybe flexible level 8 provision? Do we have to have PhDs? We've heard today from some absolutely fantastic apprentices who've got such an amazing career ahead of them. Does it need a PhD every time? Can we look at a different way of doing that? And how do we work better with the further education system to really encourage technical talent into innovative businesses?
That's great. Just one follow-up. You mentioned this fact that everyone is going to be competing for this talent, right? If I look at it in the areas that we cover, you know, one area where we've done work on is heating buildings, right? And it's an absolute massive transformation. Median age of boiler fitter in the UK is 55, vastly male-dominated industry. If I'm a boiler fitter, I'm thinking, and we've put out, you know, research saying, you know, we'll need X hundreds of thousands of these people, and all the other sectors represented across the Catapult sector network will be saying, oh, we need X 100,000, and, you know, there's not enough of those people around. What's that kind of challenge between skills and innovation like?
It's about encouraging sectors to embrace our innovations. We can't, everybody has got these massive figures. I think we've heard a few of them today. Everybody wants like 100,000 people over the next 5 years to achieve this. What we're not doing, I will go back to the construction sector, is thinking about, if we adopt these innovations, do we still need that volume of people? And in order then to support the skills system, if we're to adopt those innovations, how do you as Catapults work with the further education sector to make sure the trainers and lecturers are actually teaching those new technologies, those new innovations, so we can get a more productive workforce? Again, going back to DFE's comments today, we've got this productivity puzzle. Actually, supporting people to adopt innovations should actually result in higher skilled jobs, more job satisfaction, but also hopefully not needing as many people and embracing the UK talent pool that we do have.
Yeah, I think that interaction between innovation and skills, as well as innovation in skills, is a really important point. Thanks, Debbie. I'm sure we'll come back to that. Kate, over to you.
Hi, thank you. And thank you for the invitation today. It's been great to listen to all the conversations earlier. I represent the Bioindustry Association. So we are the trade association for innovative life sciences and biotech across the UK. So our core members are small and medium-sized businesses within biotech. And there's a number of key areas that those member companies say that they are real challenges for skills. One of those in particular is balancing the future technical skills with those in leadership and business and entrepreneurship. So how do we set up businesses? How do we scale, and how do we grow those businesses? The second one, and we had a really great workshop earlier about diversity and inclusion. So we have, you know, huge skills gaps, and Steve mentioned earlier the skills gaps across cell and gene therapy in particular. So how do we address those skills gaps in terms of attracting the broadest talent pool and keeping those skills within our sector? So we've just done a really inclusive survey around our sector members, and I think we had some discussion earlier about the diversity of the workforce. Well, in biotech, it's really well balanced, male and female, if you look at that headline figure, but then when you dig underneath it, there's a real lack of founders and CEOs that are women. There's a real lack of black employees. There's a real lack of support for different sorts of abilities within the workplace. So we need to embrace all of that diversity and inclusion. I think there's a real balance between regional, national and UK kind of policy. And, you know, skills is a complicated, devolved landscape. We're in Wales today. Some of the policies we heard from DfE are kind of England focused. So how do we balance that, that country, that national, the UK productivity versus some of the more regional opportunities that we have? And as a UK biotech sector, we wanted to grow across the country. So how do we balance all of those different sorts of policies? And then the last one, we've heard some fantastic apprentices today. And if you look in my biog, I work for the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education as well, and have had that insight from the very early start of that for apprentices and T-levels and higher technical qualifications. There's a real gap that we go straight to academia and we think about the PhDs, we think about the degrees, but there are absolutely fantastic routes into all sorts of different vocations. I think there's about 800 standards now for apprenticeships alone. So there's a real balance we need to make between technical education and academic routes, and not always going to perhaps what we know and what we did as routes, but thinking about what else is out there and what innovations can we bring through in the academic and the technical pipeline.
That's brilliant, Kate. There's some really important themes which I want to come back to later, particularly that regional, national kind of challenge on skills, which I think is really important. And come back that point that Debbie raised about how do you make it as easy as possible for the individual. We're in Newport. You're not miles away from the border. You have a totally different skills regime you might be thinking about, etc. Does that really fit with people's lives? So we'll come back to that question. Also, that issue around skills of entrepreneurship that are so important for the kind of founders, and how that plays out with ED&I. It's certainly a big challenge in the energy sector when we're thinking about that. So we'll come back to some of those themes, I'm sure, later. Oishee, over to you.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here, and it has been fascinating so far, so I hope I can contribute to the conversation. I'm Oishee. I'm based in lab, which is the Public Service Innovation Lab for Wales, and I'm part of the Infuse program, which looks at innovation in public services. So it's a Cardiff Capital Region program with these goals about, we have policy goals about decarbonization, about building supportive communities. I do research on public procurement, so how can we use government demand, public spending, public purchasing to support these policy goals? Because innovation isn't just this linear process, it's a very systems process of, you know, feedback from users that helps create innovation. And I think where the skills part that we work on in the Infuse program is actually asking questions about what are the skills required for the 21st century public servant? What are the skills in thinking, in ways of working? Do we have to learn new ways of working in public service that hasn't been the norm for the last 20, 30 years, where you know, procurement has often been this very price-driven, cost-driven exercise, but now when we are trying to move into this territory of strategically using public spending for innovation, for sustainability, for maximizing social value, what is it that we need to do differently than what we have been doing so far? So that is something that I have been involved in at Cardiff University, the Infuse program. And yeah, I think there have been a lot of things I've been picking up so far, which probably will come up in the discussion. Right now, they are just incoherent thoughts.
Good. Just to follow up that, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you a totally unfair question. As I said before, this question of how we use procurement to drive innovation, and basically not just being focused purely on cost, etc. It's been one of those things bubbling away for a long period of time in the debate about UK innovation, and indeed is an important part of kind of post-Brexit kind of settlement, as it were. Do you think we've made any progress on it?
Oh, it's
it's a fantastic time to be talking about procurement, which seems to be a strange thing to say, but there are these new legislations coming into being, which does create a space for, well, confusion and a lot of uphill, training required, training for lawyers around procurement, training for public procurers, but also training for the businesses that, would like to take part in public contracts. But I think, this is what, when we are talking about regime change in a way, or, changing the way we operate, given the challenges we face, I think that's something that keeps coming up in any conversation around, the climate crisis and, the cost of living crisis that we are living through. So with all these political, social, natural disasters that we are living in, we must work differently.
Okay.
And what are the skills we need in this, rapidly changing world?
Yeah, it's why the program you're working on, with Connected Places, Catapult, with Birmingham, Manchester University,
yes.
it's so important. I mean, when isn't it a fantastic time to talk about procurement? For sure. That's wonderful. I'm sure we'll get into some of the detail when we come in the discussion. Amar.
Thank you, Guy. Great to be here. I think maybe we start with what the Compound Semiconductor Applications Catapult kind of does. A lot of the time I speak to customers, they see us as Compound Semiconductor Catapult, and they miss out the word application. And I think this is important for the discussion we have today. When we talk about the application of compound semiconductors, it is essentially all the advanced electronics you see out there, whether it's going to be anything to do with electric vehicle, or whether it's a satellite communication that you have on your, that will deal with your mobile, 5G, anything to do with sensing, that's all compound semiconductors. And generally when they come to us, they're looking for tools, techniques, and expertise. So skills play a major role within what a catapult does. And even there, when we solve a problem, let's say in power electronics or RF or photonics, there is a huge gap in skill available there. The skill set we require to have internally as a catapult is multi-layered, right? You've got it first at a level which is more chemical. That's where the compound semiconductors comes from. Basically, it's two compounds, meaning two chemical compositions together. So the general semiconductors are usually silicon. Compound is two materials together. So for example, gallium nitride or silicon carbide. Now that alone is one specific knowledge, which is process technology and making sure that you get manufacturing processes in place. But once you get the chip out there, then the applications are needed to actually get the best out of that chip. Now, there is a lot of layers to what we need to do with it. Firstly, we do all sorts of different tests and measurements on this. We analyze the data. We then optimize at the level of the chip and the module, and then the subsystem, and then even at the system level. So you look at all of these, and there is a matrix of skills required, a matrix of techniques, and a matrix of knowledge that's needed. And if there is a gap in any one of them, it tends to be very difficult to actually solve the problems. And what we get, usually customers come to us and say, this is an intractable problem. Do you have a solution for it?
Yeah.
And so here, it's not just the skills about the technology itself that's needed, it's the innovation skills that's really important. The ability to solve problems, the ability to connect the dots, really, really important.
Yeah, and I think that brings out some of the points that others have been raising and that Debbie in particular talked about. Okay, so thank you very much, and I gave them, if they talk for longer than 2 minutes, I was going to throw them off the stage. So that incentive seemed to deliver some interesting innovation. I'm going to come out to questions from the audience in a second, and so get those ready. I'd like to get a bit more into this national versus regional question, Debbie, and I see you're avoiding eye contact with me, so I'm coming straight to you. Kate raised it as kind of one of those challenges. How does that fit with that challenge you put? Is about how we make it as easy as possible for others for people who are going to benefit from the training to improve.
I think we have to think about national solutions. I think it's really difficult for both businesses and learners to go across boundaries and there be different expectations and different requirements. But at the same way, it's definitely about local solutions in terms of it's we'll go to we're in Newport, as we've heard earlier, we're at the home of compound semiconductor applications, and we have to create prosperity in places, and if we're to do that, it's through the relationship between business and education.
Yeah.
So I think we have to look at local level interventions, but I think for efficiency, for simplicity, it should be at a level that both businesses and learners can sort of work across the system.
Okay, great. And to Kate and Amar working in different sectors, how does it feel like for a sector that's trying to think about what those skills needs are? If I'm a business in a particular area, I want people in that area, ideally, who are going to come. Does that work in practice? Does the support work in practice?
I think it's a balance. I think, unsurprisingly, policy doesn't help us in this aspect because we've got such devolved skills policy.
Yeah.
But if you look at things like the Advanced Therapies Apprenticeship Programme, we're looking at a national, as in a UK-wide programme, using apprenticeship standards that are developed in very separate countries that look quite different on paper, but actually employers want the same thing. Unsurprisingly. So employers in Scotland who are developing cell and gene therapies want the same thing that employers in England want. So being able to translate that policy into delivery at a more local level, I guess then you're even then drilling down to regional. And if you want face-to-face training, some of that has to be kind of regional, but if you want some of the new innovations that we've had, especially recently, over some of the training that we can deliver either virtually or in augmented, different sorts of reality spaces, or even online. A lot of the apprentices that we work with have their training delivered online, so they can be delivered as a cohort, but at their place of work. So it's a national programme delivered at their place of work. So it's that balance between being able to deliver to a cohort of skills and experiences, but on a national programme. But policy doesn't help us. So if there's any chance of making some of that a bit more streamlined, then that would be perfect.
That changing economic geography, the potential of technology, and the kind of post-COVID world is such an interesting balance. Am I anything to add to that?
I would say it's actually it's not just regional or national, it's almost an international way that we've seen it at the moment, right? For example, in power electronics, we have a team that is more than 8 nationalities and a team of 14 people that's there. It is something, we work with Strathclyde in Scotland, we work with Warwick in the middle, and we work with Cardiff, and we work with Swansea to try and get some of that skills shortages kind of sorted out as well. So the focus has to be across the board when it comes to this, for us at least.
Oishee, do you want to come in?
Yes, and can I come in on something about policy around this need for localized solutions or a local approach, but then given these are national problems, having a coordination. And I was thinking, would there be merit in thinking about these local approaches as, say, test beds or pilots that, if they work well, we scale up across the country or something like that?
Debbie?
Yep. That would be an ideal, and I think diplomatic
I thought you were going to form policy on stage.
No, because we can. I mean, there's such good examples. I'll go to local skills improvement plans in England where they have tested something. It looks like it can make a difference, and now we'll scale it up, and it really does help. Because again, businesses are having to contend with so much change. So I do think there's more opportunities to pilot things. But I think again, going back to the cell and gene therapy apprenticeship, that's a really good example where it started at a small scale, but we have the potential to scale it beyond that original need.
And the local skills improvement plans as a pilot are really good about building those relationships in terms of what does your local area need. So in Hertfordshire, we've got a big life sciences cluster, and yet our FE colleges didn't deliver life sciences. That doesn't make sense. They do now. So it's about building those relationships on a local and regional level to deliver on a national agenda.
And I think for the catapults, for Innovate UK, as well as for the trade associations represented, that coordination role and actually just making those connections happen is an absolutely crucial role. Right, who is brave enough to put their hand up, bearing in mind I'm pretty blind when I look at that? Anyone ready to go first? We've got some roving mics. I think there's, God, if I have my eyesight, I think that's Rob at the back. And encouragement to anyone who's left online to do that. Okay. I'll take these two together, yeah? you introduce yourself before you speak. Rob, do you want to go first?
Thank you, Guy. Rob Bryan, I'm the chair of the compound Semi-Catapult. In good parliamentary style, I'm going to ask a supplemental, if I may, as well.
Better be quick.
Two questions. One, as Alex Leadley explained so well earlier this afternoon, all of the catapults do a lot of STEM outreach individually, but I just wonder, is there a way that the Catapult Network can help to catalyse the network of STEM ambassadors further? So that's a suggestion. And secondly, it seems to be the week of publications. The nurse review has been published on RD&I this week. We saw the slide earlier. One of the Innovate UK strategic themes was about talent and skills. I'm conscious that all catapults work extensively with universities across the UK, but I wonder whether they can do more to solve one of the problems that's identified in the nurse review, namely to keep postdoctoral researchers in the UK for longer.
Okay, good challenge. Hold that thought. I'm going to take the second question at the same time and then go across the panel.
I'm Ian Donald. I'm the Head of Research and Development at Siemens. And my question is around reframing the argument, to be quite honest. We talk a lot about STEM. I've been talking about STEM for 20 years, and it doesn't really move forward. And I think we're missing a trick. We should be talking about creativity, we should be talking about innovation, and we should be looking at how do we teach people to learn about problem solving, about failing, doing experiments, and really sort of engaging with that. Because if you talk about technology, in terms of its lifetime, it's got a half-life of 5 to 10 years now, in reality. So what you want is you want people that really can think and can solve and can work in teams, be agile. So I'm just wondering if we should really be reframing it and have that creativity bit around art and all those other things that go with it.
There's some good knotty questions. Thanks, Ian and Rob. So can we coordinate STEM outreach across Catapult Network and perhaps more broadly across the innovation sector? And how do we keep postdocs in the country? And should we stop going on about STEM and think much more about creativity, innovation, etc. as a way of thinking about this? I'll go across the panel this way. Yeah. Sorry, Deborah.
Definitely. So we, as UKRI and as Innovate UK, work extensively with STEM learning. And actually, I think I was emailing somebody this week saying, how can we do this within the Catapult Network? Because I do think there's an immense role to play, and the STEM Ambassador Programme is fantastic. Linking to the second part of the question, one of the things we're then exploring with STEM learning is around innovation ambassadors in the first instance. So I think, this is a personal opinion, one of the complexities that we've got is every time we go in and engage with schools, we're doing it about an occupation that's specific to our interest. For a young person, they're hearing 20 different occupations, but actually, as you said, underpinning that is really common skills and competencies that young people will identify with. So I'd love to do more with the Ambassadors Programme. I think as a Catapult Network, it would be great to think about how can we do that in a way that is speaking to that young person and their progression routes. The other thing that I feel the need to plug it now, we've been working with the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education in England to develop an innovation skills framework so that we can overlay innovation type skills on every occupation, because I think it's not necessary that we have innovation occupations, it's actually about how we embrace innovation into our everyday roles. So there's so much that we can do as a network, but I think, especially from what we've heard today, the power that you have to do this well is amazing for young people across the UK.
Yeah, great. And I think, I'll make that point at the end. Oishee.
I can only respond to the second question because I'm not inside the Catapult. But no, on creativity, I completely agree. Like, there is so much that, especially given the way certain technologies are developing around artificial intelligence and what machines can do, I think when we talk about skills, what are really valuable are skills that make us human. Around creativity, empathy, I think is a skill that machines don't have. And perhaps that is also something that we think about, focus on, because given the progresses we are making with certain technologies, with automation, I think often our conversations are about machines taking away jobs, or, what are the jobs that machines can't take. But then I often find in these discussions about skills and education, the danger is not the machines becoming like humans, but the danger is humans becoming like machines and becoming formulaic, becoming non-creative. I think what you raise is, that point is really important. It's something I have been thinking about all of today. Also, having that space where we just think about problems rather than, and that's where innovation would happen, because we are trying to do something that hasn't been done before or hasn't existed previously. So I really like that question. Thank you.
Okay, this links to some of the points you were making about the kind of skills of entrepreneurship, which are much, more akin to kind of thinking about creativity and empathy, which I think is a good one as well. That feels like a wider set of activity.
It does, and our STEM network relies on the goodwill of volunteers. So our entire careers advice with school relies on the goodwill of volunteers in STEM. I'm not sure that's where it should be. STEM ambassadors are hugely passionate about their job and their role, but as you mentioned, Debbie, they don't understand the breadth and depth necessarily. Catapults are in an amazing position to be able to do that with students, to understand the whole wealth of careers that are out there. And not just schools. I think we forget a lot about our colleges, and so we have a lot of questions around postdoctoral researchers, etc. But our technical education and our colleges have a real lack of engagement with employers, and STEM ambassadors haven't necessarily been through that route either. So you don't go back to your local school, or you go back to where you've got relationships. So it relies on relationships, goodwill, and volunteers. It doesn't rely on a really structured program looking at how we can expose the students, the workforce of tomorrow, to all of these great innovations.
Yeah, it links to Rob's point about how we get into audiences that we wouldn't default to, as it were, which is a key challenge.
Yeah.
Mark?
To Rob's question on the STEM side of things, definitely we should work together. I think what we've done at the moment as a Catapult, we tried to tackle some of the areas where we have expertise in. So, for example, in our case, it's going to be technology and engineering that we look at. But we try to also position it in such a way that it attracts science as well. So one of the things we've done in the STEM program within the Catapult is to do a kit for schools, and that kit is a glucose meter, which is more into the scientific side of element of actually trying to attract that aspect as well. But I think if we collaborate with other catapults, surely that's going to be a multiplier, and surely something we could look at. So great question on that. On the CDT side of things and the PhDs, how do we keep them longer here? I think that the problem is what happens next, right? So one of the things that I really thought was quite attractive is the Future Leadership Program that exists, and that actually sets up the PhD or the professor or whoever it is that's within that to actually move from the academic sphere into more industrial sphere and more into the entrepreneurial side. I think we need to do a lot more. Certainly the US has done a superb job in attracting a lot of the UK PhDs that come in there, but there's a lot more to be done there. On the question from Ian about whether or not STEM is a thing, and innovation is more about the, let's say, creativity side of things as well. Fully agree. I think what we probably need is a three-pronged approach here, right? There is the soft skills that always need to be thought through. That's standard communication skills, standard working in a team, empathy, all of those stuff. There is then innovation skills, which are actually quite important, and they're not necessarily taught very well. So this is where creativity comes in. This is where technical communication or scientific communication comes in. This is where critical thinking comes in. This is problem solving. This is risk assessment. This is the element of flexibility within the design, thinking outside the box. I think that part is really important, and it's complementary to the first. And finally, if you're looking at a specialist field, then STEM obviously is an additional thing. And I think, Ian, we spoke about this during the coffee, the STEAM side of things with arts as well being as part of it is an important one. And I think here's the element of adding creativity to something that may not seem as a creative as a creative industry actually is really important, because creativity, innovation, if we get to innovation itself, is the actual ability to create new processes or change the processes that are there, right? So if you're able to do that with creative mindset, you're going to think not in the usual way, but you're going to find some alternative solutions to it.
Yeah. As important as anything else. Any other questions from the audience? Oh, I'm getting the secret signal from online.
Is there a need to change the attitudes of leadership to value diversity? Are there case studies and evidence to encourage action?
Sorry, Alex, can you read that? We didn't get the first bit of your question. Yeah.
Is there a need to change the attitudes of leadership to value diversity? Are there case studies and evidence to encourage action?
Okay. Okay. Is there a need to change attitudes to value diversity? Are there case studies, etc.? Any other questions online? Is that one?
We need to plan and act from a foundation of data. What is the panel's understanding of the size and nature of the challenge?
Okay, good question. And any other questions in the room?
Sorry, I didn't catch that last question.
Okay. So is there a need to change attitudes to value data, case studies that are, to value diversity, sorry. It's my bad note-taking skill is, and then that question of what data do we need in this area? Kate, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can definitely do the diversity and inclusion, not so much the data. But in terms of diversity and inclusion, there's an awful lot of data out there that shows you that diverse teams are more innovative, and inclusive teams are more innovative, and diverse teams, diverse businesses actually are more productive. So if you've got the ideas and you're more productive, why would leaders not want to have a more diverse and a more inclusive workplace? It's great that we're talking about diversity and inclusion so much, but we need to see a lot more action. There are some great case studies out there, and a bit of a plug for BIA's report, which will be coming out at the end of March, which talks about sort of diversity and inclusion across innovative biotech sector. There's some great organisations out there who are doing fantastic work in the pockets that they work in, whether it's WISE, so Women in STEM, in Science and Engineering, or whether it's OutBio. There are some great organisations doing some great work, but absolutely leaders need to champion this and need to demonstrate with real confirmed action, as the Catapult Network have done, to make sure that all the organisations in the network are leading by example.
Yeah, no, absolutely essential.
Yeah, I think just picking up, I completely agree. I think as well as leading by example, it's encouraging conversations, because I do think there is evidently more we can do. But how do you give people the confidence to do it? If you're looking at your workforce tomorrow and you're one of the people who's been retweeted by the gender pay gap about the issues within your workforce, where do you go for support? Where do you go to say, I need to get better at this? And again, you're going to be the answer to everything. But the Catapult Network could be the place for so many businesses to go and just have those conversations, those safe conversations about how do I improve inclusivity within my workforce. And so I think that's a real thing we can do. On data, I think there are times when I say I think we have enough. I think we know where the UK is with its productivity challenges. I think we know where the UK is in regard to sort of, again, back to 80% of our current workforce being our future workforce. I think it's time for action. I think Innovate UK's commitment within our foundations to innovation, talent and skills is testament to that. But I think now we just have to pull together to make those routes for individuals to realise their full potential.
Great. Oishee, do you want to come in on this?
Yes, I think to that first question, is there a need to do more on diversity and changing leadership attitudes to it? Yes, short answer. And I think that is something that's, although there is a lot of talk about diversity, unless, there is something done at a leadership level, it's going to be a very slow change otherwise. And, so yes, there is a need for a lot to be done, and a lot needs to be done. On data, I think I quite agree with you, Debbie, on there's there's a lot of data out there. How do we harness it best and extract information from it? One thing that my supervisors told me during the PhD was there's a lot of value from a well-written case study, and the important word there is well-written, because there are lots of case studies out there, but you can't really, they're not critical, they don't engage. So yes, we do need a data bank maybe with all the information that already exists, but that would be valuable in sharing best practices, in learning, and shared learning across sectors, across industries, possibly.
Great. Amar, anything to comment on this one?
Just very briefly, yeah, absolutely, there needs to be more to be done on the diversity side at leadership level, but I think there is a natural selection here as well. Non-diverse organizations will automatically die out as they move. They become non-competitive, essentially. In today's environment, I mean, you'll see a trend moving towards that heavily. So whether or not it's built into the leadership mentality of various companies or not, the market will force it. And I think that's really good news that that's the way we move towards it. And there is obviously a lot of data supporting all of this. Now, we see this in the large organizations, which is great, right? We see it at the very top organizations, whether it's Google or Facebook or the others. But we also see it in small organizations now as well. And that's really encouraging. And this is not just a UK phenomenon. It's actually happening everywhere, where they see competitive edge by being diverse. Competitive edge by being inclusive, and that becomes a real competitive advantage. So leaders of today, generally, they come out of the leadership experience seeing that at first hand, and they will make sure they take the steps to do it. But it will take time to filter through, I think. We shouldn't have a conversation like this, hopefully in 10, 15 years' time, in terms of diversity and inclusion. That should be really built in as a first principle.
Yeah. And as part of the reason that the Catapult network and the CEOs have made ED&I such a priority for our cross Catapult activity and the charter that we committed to, partly as a survival issue as much as anything, partly as a doing the right thing, but most importantly, diversity and innovation, that kind of link is so strong that if you're not talking about that, then you're at risk. Right, last question from me from our panelists before we have to wrap up. I'm just going to ask about the key takeaway that you guys have taken from today's sessions, and the thing that perhaps surprised you, or the thing that reinforced something that you were really working hard on. And I'm going to start at the reverse end and give Debbie a bit more time. Of course, the downside is if they steal all your answers that you were going for. Amar.
Yeah, I think if I summarize today, it's the most important element of the skills side of things is really having that ability to connect the dots, to learn how to learn, which I think came up in a couple of presentations that I've heard today. Critical thinking as being part of that, because I think we're moving towards a world where there's ChatGPT that can answer a lot of the questions for you and get you all of these things. But how do you know whether the answers are the correct ones, the wrong ones? And when you have all this information at your fingertips, without critical thinking, without learning how to learn and understanding all of these elements, I think it's going to be quite a difficult journey to traverse. So,
I think that point, when we think about skills, often tend to default to, kind of the STEM skills, as it were. But those other skills are absolutely essential for the kind of challenges we're all facing. Yeah. Okay.
For me, it wasn't that long ago that skills wasn't included in Catapult's remits. In fact, it probably was discouraged. I don't know. It was more about the technology than it was about the skills. So to have a whole afternoon celebrating skills and looking at the work that everybody's doing within skills is excellent. Are Catapults set up to be able to deliver that? You've got such an ideal opportunity as a network to deliver on a lot of this. Where does it fit into your priorities, and where does it fit in terms of how well funded that is to actually deliver on something?
Yeah, very good points.
I think as somebody who has come from a university, one of the things I've been thinking about is academia, the type of education we provide, what is the purpose of university education in conversations about, the future of the UK and the future of skills. And I think that is what I'm going to take away, and that's going to be the, the critical thought that stays in my head, that what is it that we learn, what is it that we teach, what's our education system like? Because I have been working on a board game for school children, linked to the curriculum for Wales, about, creating this immersive learning experience. And, the initial small grant came from the university, and the idea was to encourage these school children to think about university. But after this, I'm like, no, they should be thinking about so much more. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I look forward to seeing that board game. That's fantastic, Oishee.
I think for me, I've probably got a challenge for the catapults. I've been absolutely amazed today by the pockets of good practice. As you said, Kate, for a relatively new priority to see so much going on already. But one of the things that constantly strikes me is how do we do things more effectively? How do we stop confusing the system and stop duplicating? And so where my head's at the moment is what can a catapult take from another catapult? Of the examples we've seen today, what were you thinking of doing? And is there something that one of the other catapults is already doing that actually you can build on? Learn from whatever good and bad that they've taken from that experience, and actually grow the network based on all the good practice you've got amongst you.
No, that's brilliant, and that's certainly the huge value of days like today. Please join me in thanking our panel for an excellent session. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are we getting off? Are we staying on? Are we getting?
I think it's up to you.
That is the
You're
worst
welcome
answer.
to stay. I'm just going to invite Katherine back. So you're welcome to stay seated.
Thank you very much, Guy, and thank you, Debbie, Kate, Oishee and Imar. Really fantastic, and I'm glad we got some questions from Zoom as well. So throughout history, humans have adapted, they've created new jobs, and they've boosted productivity. In our first industrial revolution in the 19th century, we learnt to cope with mechanisation in factories driven by steam power. We moved away from artisan craftsmanship and cottage industries. In the second revolution, we embraced electricity. And in the third industrial revolution from the 1960s, we saw the rise of information technologies. We got used to personal computers. We hailed the invention of the microchip. Now a new disruptive force is upon us, building on those foundations, but taking us into a new age driven by the internet, artificial intelligence, as Amar was saying, automation, and crucially by a greater respect for our environment and maybe, dare I say it, for our people. If we want to rise to the huge challenges that face our world, if we want our organisations to succeed, if we want to prosper as nations and individuals, then we need the skills to harness those new tools. That is clearly an urgent strategic imperative for every one of us. I hope some of the presentations you've heard today will help you to deliver on that imperative within your organisation. I hope you've maybe heard some bright ideas, as Debbie just said, that you can steal with pride. And don't forget that quote I said right at the beginning of our session about learning how to learn. But before I start to think about them, there's some important things I want to do. We've spent the whole afternoon thinking about skills and ED&I. Thank you to all of you for your engagement, whether people on Zoom or actually, I love my enthusiastic colleagues from the NCC who managed to drive their composite canoe over on a car over the Severn Bridge to have on display, and just an example of the amazing interactive displays we had outside. Of course, events like today also demand a huge array of skills: concept development, planning, relationship building, communications, project management, and so much more. Unfortunately, we've got people like that in our catapults, in our network, and they embody all of those talents combined into huge reservoirs of resilience and energy needed to turn today's event from an ill-defined idea to something that I think will be valuable for all of us. Now, I need to pay tribute to the gentleman who actually said, let's do this conference, and that's Matthew Durdy, my predecessor as chair of the Catapult Network. Thank you, Matthew, for inspiring us to do this. But please join me, of course, in thanking all of our speakers and those who led the workshop sessions. I know for some of you it was quite nerve-wracking. This is a huge stage to come and speak at. And thank you. I found it very heartwarming and really interesting. And as Debbie said, great examples of best practice. So thank you to all of you for taking part today. I also want to thank the working group who we worked hard over several weeks to put this together, but I especially want to thank two people. So the first one is Alex, who's hiding there in the wings of the stage from Compound Semi. You put huge passion. I know you were, come out here. I know you were determined that we hosted this in Newport. Thank you so much. Thank you. You did. We've got a present for you here.
Oh, gosh. Oh.
Here we go.
Oh, thank you.
Busy, Hotel Chocolat.
Hide it from my children.
There's probably somebody else hiding. India, where are you, India? Is she here? Is she hiding? India, come up here. Come on down. Gosh, that's showing my age. India did so much work to put together today's event. And I hope you all agree, this is the third event that we've been involved in over the last year or so, and I think there's real desire to do some more. So India, watch out, we're going to be keeping you busy. But thank you for your leadership. She's so embarrassed. Here we are. Thank you. So, as Debbie said, kind of challenging us, what's next? Obviously, we'd be really keen to get feedback from those of you who attended here in person, also online. Also, as Guy said, I know we as a CEOs group will reflect and think about what we can do next, and we will also, obviously, Alex will talk to the working group and think what we do next. But really, it just remains for me to say, hope you all have a safe journey, avoiding snow and ice, and let's make sure we keep talking, keep collaborating together, and look forward to seeing you at our next conference. We have to work out where that's going to be, but it will be somewhere in the UK. Thank you very much.